I am happy today to be with Penny Kittle, where we're going to talk about advocacy and some of the things that she has done over time. Penny, as you all know, is a teacher and a writer and has reached so many of our lives through the wonderful books that she's written. And I've always been struck as well by the advocacy work she does. And I love that on her website it says she's identified as teacher, author, and advocate. So that's
Mm.
what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And so I asked Penny if maybe she could start by telling us a story about your own advocacy.
Okay, so you have to go way back in time to 2008, and I was teaching writing at Kennett High School with seniors, and it occurred to me how many things I was seeing on video. And so I said to my class, here's the thing, we're entering our argument unit. I want you to make an argument about something, but you're going to create it a video, a digital version, and you're going to write an essay. And I don't care which one you do first, because I'm thinking the whole time as a process person, if they make the video first, writing the essay is easier, but I want you to do both. Let's just see what happens in this experiment. No idea what I was getting into, but I showed them this really hokey, I want more kids to read more, like piano music and pictures of kids reading. And all of my students were like, that's horrible, Miss Kittle. It moves way too slow, like, because they're already, digital kids in 2008. And I'm saying, okay, so how can I make it better? It was that perfect workshop kind of back and forth between I'm trying to model my process, but it's a mess. And it developed into this amazing unit, kids working together. How do I do this? And they'd help each other because I didn't know how to do most of it. But what I created in that space was they told me I needed to talk to people, and I started interviewing all these kids. And then when I started creating the video and I put them together, there's a question in the very first video I made, why kids won't read what's assigned in class, where kid after kid said, spark notes, spark notes, spark notes. And I put it together like a repetitive thing that would make you crazy. And created this video with actually way better music than's online now, but you can't use copyrighted music. So that was all pulled off and it was put on YouTube. And I am still amazed at the travel, the kind of like legs that video has had. It was featured in the Washington Post at one point, and it was all of my comments in the beginning were really negative and angry from teachers. Like I was like not being right with the profession, where my frustration was, we're not doing right by kids. And so then there was a tipping point where it changed, and many of the comments were much more positive over, developing a love of reading. And then I decided to make one years later. And that one, I was doing Pilates one night, if you can imagine, with this woman. And all of a sudden in my head, I can remember because we were doing crunches, I saw stacks of books instead of pieces of paper that I used in the first. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so much more powerful. And when I told the kids, they started they're the ones who came up with 9th grade, 10th grade in my second video with no books read and then a stack in grade 12. And it was so, visually powerful, but also I used the music, All You Need Is Love. And it made me think at the end, all we need is book love. And then that became the book that I was writing, the title of the book that I was writing. So I don't know if that really is what you're asking, but what I was trying to do was say, let's give our kids a voice in this conversation about why they're not reading.
And I think what you talked about, the visual, is so important in that, because I know the first time I saw it and I saw those piles of books, it just like hit me in the gut, right? This is how many they read before. This is how many they've read now. And we're going to link the videos in here so people can see that.
Yeah.
But it just struck me when kids had the choice and were able to read, things changed. And it's been a powerful video that then I've used with pre-service teachers and practicing teachers, right, to try to advocate for choice in reading and classroom libraries and all of that.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that creating the video with my kids both times is part of what we are asked to do as teachers of the process of writing, is show them how we work and how do we make something. And so even this fall, I was doing that with my students when I was trying to craft a video. Many of them have skills way beyond mine when they come to me now, because they're making these, outside the classroom already. but trying to do it again and saying, this just doesn't feel right. I'm not getting my message across, and having kids give me feedback on how to improve that. I think that it does two kinds of work there. It's advocacy for them and their reading lives outside of school and in school, but it also does this work for teachers, reminding them that when we do the work we assign to kids, it changes our relationship with how we present it and how we understand what kids are trying to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And as I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows, that book love, the book led to the Book Love Foundation,
Yeah,
in which, that's a total advocacy thing as well. I don't know if you want to
it
say
is.
about
And
that.
it feels even more important in this time of book banning. We have to have ways of supporting the teachers that are in the work, trying as hard as they can, and not being trusted to make decisions. Our grants are really, we trust you to choose the books that you believe your kids need. And many of them do book clubs out of the grant money they receive. And they just design several rounds of book clubs and get, 8 copies of each book. And that's in honor of Dr. Terry Lassane and her work. And just this trusting teachers. That's the heart of what Book Love Foundation is. And we are raising money all year just to help teachers have advocacy in their own work.
Which is amazing, and what a gift to teachers. And so
Mm.
the other question I wanted to ask you, well, probably teachers are not going to start their own foundation right now.
No, they aren't.
But it's an amazing story that you were able to do that. But so, what message would you want teachers to take away from this? Like, what kinds of advocacy can you imagine teachers
Mm.
doing? Everyday advocacy is all about teachers finding their voice and using their voice to help make changes in what's going on in education, and in particular, how they can do it and still be teachers in the classroom, as part of their
Yeah,
everyday lives.
that is such a good question, because much of the work that I was doing prior to writing my first books was all, I was a regular classroom teacher who had some big ideas about the way things were working in my school for kids, right? And so anytime I was really looking at what is this experience like for them, it led me to ask questions. And so I would, I had a letter writing thing that I did with one principal. We both read in the middle and wrote letters to each other once a month about what we were learning. Right. And she was game for that. But I asked her, I want to talk about this book with someone, and no one in my department wants to read it. And it was the second edition, I think it was. And then there was another time when I was going to be absent, but just for one class period. And I asked my principal if he would sub for me. And I did it because he was questioning what I was doing and whether or not time to read in class mattered. And I said, if you would just cover this one class, like any sub. And the day he was there, some of the kids were working on reading ladders where they wrote down all the things they'd been reading and what they thought. He left that one class and came to find me after school and said, I want to know how you did what those kids are doing. How did you do that? And I said, that's the pilot that I'm asking you to let me start, which is all of my classes doing this blend of, and he was in. And I think that sometimes that's the advocacy, is to go to someone in power that you might feel as a blocker, and invite them into your work, as messy as it is. And as, it's never going to be perfect, but come in and watch me confer with kids and then tell me that it's not a good use of time. Is there anything we learned here?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, where we just say, this really matters to me. This is a belief.
Yeah.
Or a question. This matters because I'm wondering, I just read this and I'm wondering, could I do that?
It's fantastic. In sort of the everyday advocacy terms that we've used from community organizers, it's like finding the decision maker, right?
Yes.
And helping the decision
Yes.
maker to understand what you're doing.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to go with the open heart. As I always say to my daughter, go and find out, what does your principal really believe about this? Because you don't know. You think you know. You don't know until you have that conversation, right?
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you started with a letter back and forth. Let's read this book
Yeah.
and write the
Yeah.
letter back and forth. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great idea of things that teachers could actually do as part of their day-to-day lives. Any other thoughts for us on this?
I think that I am amazed every single day at the wealth of books out there that are incredible. The publishing industry has exploded with books that kids will want to read. And so this last month, I've been reading only middle school books, and it's to prepare for our summer book club. There are so many good ones. And I just think we need to be out there reading those books, because I've heard the disparaging comments about young adult literature. And I think, what did you ever read? Let me show you, you know? My last thought is, check out some books from your local library. Just spend an afternoon. And, we love literature. We love reading. It's not going to be torture, and it may just open your eyes to what you didn't know was possible. And let me give you one, A Seed in the Sun, Aida Salazar's new book about the migrant worker uprising with Cesar Chavez in Northern California. It is a gorgeous story for middle grade kids, and all of the tools at the back will get them thinking about, what do I want to stand up for? So
That's great
what a
advice.
penny.
Penny, thank you so much for spending a little time and talking about all of this. It's going to be one
Always good to talk to you.
Thanks.